Hello, my name is Jeevan. In this video, I'm going to be installing the EMG Zakk Wilde pickup set, which is the 81 and 85 active humbuckers, into my Epiphone Explorer Goth 58. If you are new to the channel, welcome. I usually do covers and live performances, however those usually take a very long time to make, so I figured I would try and help some people out and make this install video. I'm not going to be going super in-depth into this install video, as a lot of other people, EMG themselves included, have made tutorials on how to install these pickups into a guitar. However, because this set was made for Les Paul, I will go over anything specific to the Explorers. Additionally, at the end of the video, I'm going to do a sound comparison between these original pickups and the new EMGs. Now, the last thing before we get into the install is why I want to put these into this guitar. Ever since I got into the metal side of music years ago, I've wanted a set of these. They look incredible, they sound amazing from what I've heard, and Metallica uses them, so of course I want them. They are basically my dream pickups. And now the second, more important reason is something is up with this bridge pickup. It's lost a lot of low end. I'm not sure when or why, but it seems to have lost a low end and generally just sounds very trebly. It's a lot more noticeable when I'm using virtual amps as opposed to physical amps like my Boss Katana, but something is definitely still up. It is a lot more noticeable when I roll off the tone knob, as you will hear in the sound comparison later. And instead of trying to figure out what's wrong with them, I figured I'd just replace them because EMGs, why not? Now into the install. And here we are, my Explorer with the new EMGs and electronics. In terms of things specific to the Explorers, there are a few worth pointing out. First and most importantly, there is not a lot of space on the backside of the guitar in the control cavity, and it takes a bit of playing to get it all to fit correctly. I have the two outer pots facing inwards and the center pot perpendicular to the other pots. Then I put the main bus on its side on the top side of the cavity. The bus comes with Velcro on it, but I took that all off to give myself a bit more space. The battery fills up the remaining space on the bottom of the cavity. It is a tight squeeze, but it does all fit without putting any extra strain on anything. The next thing specific to the Explorers are the pots. The Explorers have 2 volume and 1 tone, whereas the Les Pauls have 2 of each. However, EMG makes this really nice and easy, as the wiring diagram has multiple configurations, so there's no worries there. There are configurations for 2 tone pots and 2 volume pots, like Les Pauls, 2 volume 1 tone, and even 1 volume 1 tone. In fact, I think the wiring diagrams are actually really nicely laid out and really easy to follow. Now, for electronics, the only original part is the pickup selector. And on it, you need to know where each of the wires goes originally, so you can put it into the correct spot on the new EMG bus. For this guitar, the neck pickup has a green wire, there's a red wire for the bridge pickup, white wire for the output, and a uncovered wire for the ground. However, I know Gibson likes to be a bit inconsistent with these, so just before you do this, make sure you know what wire goes to what. The last modification, and this is a slightly weird one, is I had to drill out the jack plate. The original jack that came with this guitar is circular, but the tops and bottom are squared off. And similarly, the jack plate follow the same contours. However, the EMG jack is perfectly circular. So what I did was I screwed the jack plate onto a piece of scrap wood and then took a drill bit to it. I think it was a 1/4 inch, but I'm not entirely sure. So I just drilled it out and then it worked great. For the future, I would go with a slightly bigger drill bit, maybe a 3/8 inch, as I had to screw the jack plate onto the jack, but it still works. So I think that is all of the Explorer specific stuff, but I wanted to give a few general tips. This kit is a completely solderless kit, so it is all plug and play. However, if you wanted to preserve the old electronics and not cut anything, I would recommend a soldering iron. This is what I did. I used a soldering iron to desolder all of the old wires because I want to save the electronics for a future parts caster build. However, I wasn't able to desolder all of the ground wires, but I am new to soldering, so that was probably just user error. When putting in the wires for the pickups, make sure you know which wires go to which pickup. I put in the pickups, put in the wires, put back in the pickguard, and then discovered I didn't know which wire went to which pickup in the control cavity. It wasn't that hard of a fix. I just had to take off the pickguard and figure out which wire was which, but just make your life easier and make sure you know which wire is which before putting on the pickguard. The last thing is, don't forget that there are 2 nuts plus the washers for each pot. There is 1 nut that goes on the inside in the control cavity and 1 that goes on the outside. I forgot to put the inside one in, and as a result, the pots stick up slightly higher than I would have liked. But on the other hand, because the pots stick up higher, there's more space in the control cavity, which isn't a bad thing, as there's already a lot of limited space as it is. Oh, and one more Explorer specific note is make sure you order the 10mm pots, the shorter ones, not the longer 19mm pots, as those will stick up really high. And those are for the Les Pauls. Before we get into the tone comparison, I'm just going to walk you through my signal chain. I'm using the Boss Katana, it's the 1st generation, and I'm using the line out from the back of the amp straight into my audio interface, and then from there into my DAW. I'm using Reason. So no mics, nothing like that, just a straight line out. On the amp, I'm using the clean channel. All of the EQ settings are basically around 12 o'clock. And then the only effect I'm using is a bit of reverb and delay. And the presence is also at 0. For the distorted segment, I am using my Boss DS1. and the tone is slightly past 12 o'clock. The level is around 2 o'clock, and the distortion isn't quite maxed out, but it's around 4 o'clock. And yeah, that's it. No other effects, just the Boss Katana and the Boss DS1 straight into my audio interface. Now let's get on to the tone comparison. So there we go. Personally, I think these new EMGs are a great upgrade and they sound awesome. The tone test was mostly just to compare the old pickups versus these new ones, and as a result, the tone I had does not justify how good these sound. If you boost the bass and treble and scoop the mids a bit, these really come to life. While the distorted sounds are certainly improved, I think the biggest upgrade is actually with the clean sounds. They just sound so incredibly crisp and full. Overall, I would absolutely recommend the EMG Zakk Wilde set. It only took me a few hours and I think the guitar sounds so much better. I hope you enjoyed this install and this new type of content that I'm trying out. If you did, stay tuned because in a few weeks I'm going to be installing a custom Warmoth baritone scale conversion neck onto my semi-hollow telly. Thanks for watching.